So I was having a conversation with someone who's in one of my programs just today, and then we were talking about sales, and we were talking about sales objections because they had a sales call today, and a part of that sales call was their prospect telling them that they were too expensive. They didn't have the money to spend on what my client was offering. And so it can be very frustrating when that happens. It can make you feel a little bit unbalanced, like, am I doing the right thing? Are my prices too high? It can cause you to doubt yourself. I want you to put all of that away because that's what we're going to clear up today. It's Chris Prouty, and for those who don't know me, for the last 21 years, I have helped thousands of experts and entrepreneurs grow their businesses by attracting new clients into their businesses, but not how you might think. If you are new to my channel, now would be a genius time to click the subscribe button and turn on the bell for notifications so that you get alerts every time I create new videos about growing your business. Someone said, I can't afford this, or I don't want to pay this, or I don't have the money to pay this, or you're too expensive. They all mean about the same thing, but they don't mean what they are actually saying. They don't really mean you're too expensive. I'm going to tell you today what it actually means in most cases and how you can, what you can do to avoid that even coming up. And when it comes up, what you can do to kind of work through it with the prospect if that's something that you choose to do. But before I get to that, I want to let you know I have this link right here on my screen. I really do want to make sure it's there. It is there. I have this link right here on the screen. Don't click on that. It'll just pause the video. But go to this link and jump into a free class with me that I'm delivering this week in just a couple of days. It's going to be a full class, pure value for you, where I'm going to be teaching you 5 things that you can do to start getting clients online. If that's something that's attractive to you, just go here to proutyclass.com and I will see you in that class. You know, my clients come to me because they have an incredible product or service that they know can change an industry, but they don't have the number of clients that they wish to serve. They've had some success, but they want more clients. So we work on a start to finish approach that brings clients to them and then teach them how to turn more prospects into clients. And it's one of the most fulfilling and rewarding things that I do. So let's talk about why you're getting the objection that you're too expensive. Because in many cases, it's not because you're too expensive. And it would be wise for you when you're pricing your products or services to look at what the industry is charging and make sure you're within that range. It's completely fine to be the most expensive in your market. But what's not acceptable is that if you're incredibly cheap compared to the rest of your market, because then you're devaluing yourself, you're devaluing your services, and you're devaluing the industry itself. So it would be wise for you to spend time, especially on Money Monday, but it would be wise for you to spend time looking at what your industry averages are. And you can find this information, just Google around. A lot of times there are resources that will help you figure that out. Make sure that your prices are in line with the industry so that when someone says you're too expensive, the first thing that you can say is, compared to what? Compared to my competition, compared to my industry? If someone says you're too expensive, the very first question you should ask is, well, compared to what? And sometimes you can even front end that with, say, they'll say you're too expensive, and you'll say, well, that's a concern. Almost like you've never heard that before. And not that we want to put our prospects in any kind of a position, other than feeling like we're servicing them. But truly, if you are in line with your industry, it should be a concern that someone's saying you're too expensive. It just means that maybe they're not the highest qualified prospect. You should be concerned about that they're somehow in your pipeline. But the first question to ask is, okay, compared to what? And then kind of let them talk. It's going to give you some valuable information. One of the things that I do, and I'll share a quick story with you in a second about my experience in sales. But one of the things that I love to do is when I get a question like that, or I get an objection like that, is just to start asking the hard questions so that you can get more information. It might not help you on the call at present, but it will help you in the future. The more information you can get, and as you know, you hear me say this, I have this book and this dedicated pencil with this book. Whenever I hear objections, I'm writing them down, I'm asking the questions, and I'm taking a whole bunch of notes to make sure that I can address these things before they even come up in the future. So make sure you're in line with what your industry is charging. That's going to be the number one thing that I'm going to suggest that you do. Now, let's really dig into why you're hearing the "you're too expensive" objection. It's largely due to two things. One of them is going to be that you didn't demonstrate enough value prior to giving pricing on your product or service. When there's so much value for what you're doing, for the outcome or the transformation that you're offering, when you offer the price, as long as that value, that perceived value, is more than the price that you're asking them to pay for it, it should be a no-brainer for them to say yes. But if you have not demonstrated enough value, then when you give the price, it's going to be disproportionate. And they're going to feel like you're asking them to pay more than what they're going to be getting. So we want to make sure before we even expose the price for what we're doing, that we have built up a tremendous amount of value. Now, we want to be very honest and upfront, and with all of this, we don't want to promise things we can't deliver, and we don't want to overpromise or promise things that will never really come true. So always build that authentic value for the outcomes that you offer. If you are curious about really interesting ways to do that, just jump here to proutyclass.com, come to my free class this week. It's one of the topics that we're going to be talking about. So proutyclass.com will get you into that free class. You'll have a really good time there. I promise you that. So making sure that you're demonstrating value prior to giving pricing is going to help negate or eliminate that objection of "you're too expensive." Because if you've demonstrated enough that you're going to give them enough value, they're going to be willing to pay a price for that. But there is an even more insidious and nefarious reason why people say things are too expensive. I'll tell you about that in just a moment. I do want to share a quick story with you. I was looking at my sales numbers, my personal sales numbers for 2021. I had 783 sales calls that I handled personally in 2021, and my close rate for round numbers was about 40%. It was just a little bit less than that, like 39.7%. I rounded to 40 just to make that nice and easy for us to talk about. So when I look at my industry, the average close rate is about 20%. So I have been able to double the average close rate in my industry, which makes me really happy. One of the reasons that I do that is that I provide a tremendous amount of value, and I demonstrate that value prior to making the sales offer, if indeed I'm going to make the sales offer to someone. Not everybody gets the sales offer. So my close rate, about just a little bit, couple of fractions of a percent less than 40% for 783 calls is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. So then I started to look at some other industry numbers, and I found a report on HubSpot that this report on HubSpot was talking about how about 53% of people who do sales found that from 2021 to 2022, they just remained relatively flat in terms of their close rate. And that about a third of those surveyed, it was about 1,000 people that they surveyed, saw an uptick in their close rate. And then the rest saw a downturn in their close rate. So more than half, about 53%, saw just a level close rate from 2021 to 2022, and then about a third saw an uptick in their close rate. So that's kind of interesting information to have, especially as you're thinking about your own close rates. I do hope that you are tracking your close rates. If you're not, it would be wise to do so. Come to proutyclass.com this week and ask me about that in the Q&A, and I will share with you some easy ways to start tracking your close rate. Just go to proutyclass.com, sign up for that, and I will see you in there. So I want to talk to you about the most destructive, the most insidious, the most just the thing that works against you the most when you hear people say you're too expensive. And it's the hardest one for any of us who are providing a product or a service to overcome. And It's the one that happens the most. When someone says you're too expensive, what they're really saying is, I'm not willing to take a financial bet on myself that I'm going to do what it takes to get the transformation that you're offering. This is especially true if you're a consultant, you're a coach, if you provide any kind of a service. When people say you're too expensive and you're in those industries, what they're saying is, I don't believe in myself enough to put money and to bet on myself. And that is a devastating thing for me when I perceive that that's what's happening, is when someone doesn't have belief in themselves. But it is truly what happens the most. They're not willing to put money up and not get a transformation. And it isn't that you haven't provided enough evidence of the value. It's that they don't believe in themselves enough to take a bet on themselves. And sadly, there are more people like that than there are who say it's too expensive because they don't have the money. Most of the people watching this video are watching it on a $1,000 phone or a $2,000 computer or a $1,000 tablet. People have money and people can afford things, but people are afraid to bet on themselves. And that is a psychological, sociological, psychographical condition that is very difficult to get around. The way to get around it, and I will share with you a way to get around it, the way to break through a prospect's lack of belief in themselves, which is being presented as, I don't have the money for this, or this is too expensive, is to give them micro transformations prior to even having a sales call. And you give them these micro transformations by always providing educational information through social media, through your blog, through your emails, through all communications. If you're always educating and people are able to absorb that education and have those micro transformations, that's going to help build up the evidence in their minds that they do have what it takes to get this outcome and to get this transformation for themselves. It's going to open up their belief in themselves. And when someone believes in themselves, coupled with you showing them that they're going to get a tremendous amount of value from what you're offering, more than what they're paying, there should be no price objection. And no one should be saying, you're too expensive. But that's a hard one to get past, my friends. It is very hard to overcome the objection that manifests as money, but is actually a veil for a strong disbelief that people have in themselves. And I see it all the time when I make offers to come into my programs, is that people just don't believe in themselves. And sometimes we can't do anything about that. And sometimes we just have to let those people go. And that's fine, because there are people who do believe in themselves that will come into your service and they will get a transformation. And by the way, if you are serious about attracting those kind of people to you, please go to proutyclass.com and sign up for the free workshop that I'm giving this week. It's a free class. We're going to spend about an hour together, have a great time. And while everything I've taught you today is incredibly important, it might not be the only thing that you need, which is why I'm going to put a video right here for you to check out right now about getting new clients into your business. And if you click on my face, you can subscribe to my channel to get alerts every time I create new videos like this.